And I'm saying to myself, as a colored man in this country, there's nothing that I'll ever achieve, except when I read about Ralph Bunche, I said, if he can rise to the heights, international heights like this, so could I. And it was at that time I had an epiphany. At 16 years of age, all the chains of inferiority and that second class dropped away from me, and I knew that I was as good as any man that walks this earth. You see, I was baptized at age 13. They say you're born again, etc. But I was put under the water, came up, all I felt was cold. And I thought I was going to drown. Nothing new came over me, I'm sorry to say, Reverend. But when I read about Dr. Bunche, I became a new, I was somebody. And then I said that I'm never going to stand on the sidelines again. That we're going to change it. Because of the accident of my birth, because I'm black, I can't be president of the United States, or I can't be a first. Of course, I'm going to make things change. I'm going to make things happen, okay? So I got active and became involved, etc. So through the years, I joined the NAACP and met Bill Ewing, my good friend. He was the president of Youth Council in suburbia, and I was the president of Youth Council in town. And a wonderful woman by the name Mrs. Madeline Williams was our advisor, and she was the first African-American assemblywoman in the state of New Jersey. This was way back in the, my God, Bill, you and I are old, but back in the 50s, I guess. And what happened, I became very active in the NAACP. I rose from the Youth Council president to the state president to the regional chair of the Youth Work Committee, and then I was elected national chairman of the NAACP Youth and College chapters. And if some of you have seen that picture that I sent around here, that you'll see a picture of that young guy in there, that picture. That's Bill Payne. That's me at a convention. And what happened at that, during my civil rights days, is that I would go to conventions, and I had the opportunity of meeting people who were on the front lines of the struggle. I mean, people who were getting shot because they said they're going to register to vote. I remember being at a convention in St. Louis, and a man by the name of Gus Courts, who was had a general store, a grocery store. He had been preaching about voter registration and said we have to register to vote. And they shot him, of course, and through his store window. And he came to the convention bandaged up, right? But then there was a Reverend George W. Lee who preached from his pulpit about registering to vote. Meet me at the courthouse on Tuesday. Well, they killed him on Monday, all right? Well, these are people that I had met. And I said, well, if these people can give their lives, the least I can do is give my time. And I had the opportunity, of course, and the honor of meeting people like Thurgood Marshall, et cetera. No, not only meeting him, but arguing with him, because I was a youth in the youth division. And the NAACP, I'll tell you, was an organization that said youth should be seen and not heard. I mean, you can go out there and pick them, but you can't say anything here. You know, and I was on a convention. I was on the youth member of the Constitution Revision Committee, with Thurgood Marshall was the chairman of it. And of course, I said, oh no, you know, I'm in college, man. Shoot, you're not gonna make me sit. Oh, sit down, boy. You know. And Roy Wilkins, of course, he told me, please get out of here, just get out of the way. But what happened was meeting all these people and giving their lives at that convention in 1956. This was. Many of you don't know that I'm how old I am. I'll tell you, I'm 71 years old. But when I show people this picture, they say, well, what? How could that's Dr. Gibb? Well, yeah, I'm 71 years old, you see. And and that's my older brother there. My older brother. he was running around here laughing and smiling at all these young ladies here, you know. He's an old man. He won't remember your name. He'll say, what's your name again? Oh, I got something I want to talk to you about. Well, you better remember the name first. Anyway, at this convention, I had the opportunity of meeting many wonderful people at these various conventions. And then at this convention in 1956, you know, Dr. King had just started the bus boycott in '55, and he came to the Democratic Convention in San Francisco Civic Auditorium to report to the nation, to report to the NAACP about that boycott. I was the national chairman, as I say, of the youth and college chapters, and then the day that he came, it was our day, it was Youth Day. And I was the host of that meeting. I was the speaker, the youth speaker. And I had the honor of introducing A. Philip Randolph. A. Philip Randolph first. He got up and spoke, and I don't know if you ever hear recordings of him or met him. He spoke with a broad A. He would say National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Very, very proper gentleman, but a great labor leader, the Sleeping Car Porters Union. So he spoke, and then I got up and spoke about young people involved in the civil rights movement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I say that we claim this young man who will follow me, this young minister, a young man only 27 years old at the time, that he's going to come and speak too. Well, anyway, Dr. King got up and made his speech. But when he got up there, I went to sit down, and I looked up in his seat, and there was a whole sheath of papers. I picked it up, and it was a speech. And I tried to get his attention before he started speaking because I didn't want him to be embarrassed, reach in there and not be there, right? And I couldn't get his attention. Anyway, he went on and started speaking, and I opened up and I kind of followed, almost verbatim. I said, this is a man who wrote his own speech. Nobody wrote this for him. This is coming from his mind, his heart, and it's right down there, you know. And it was so magnificent. I remember to this day Dr. King saying that discrimination and segregation are diametrically opposed to each other, to the democracy rather, and all of the dialectics of the logicians cannot make them lie down together. I said, what? I said, what? So, and then he said, the human race is like a piano keyboard. He said you had to play the bass black to the treble white in order to get music. I mean, he was just so fantastic. I mean, and he just talked, and when he finished that speech, everybody in that auditorium, the Civic Auditorium, which I think is now the Maroney, a new name of it out there in San Francisco, everybody tried to get up there to touch him, shake his hand, and et cetera. So what happened was that the fire department came up, or policemen, they said, Dr. King, he was short, and they said, stand up on this chair. So in one of the pictures you see, Dr. King is in fact standing on a chair, and I'm next to him there. We're up on chairs there, and they're trying to get the crowd off. And what happened was he would reach over to see somebody, shake their hand, and say, oh, hello, how are you, Mr. So-and-so, or Mr. So-and-so. And as he did that, the other people would touch him. And so I touched him and start crying. I touched him. And if he had said, now, I want all of you to follow me as we walk across the water, I would have been the first one to try to walk because he had elevated us so much. It was fantastic. Years later, I told Coretta Scott King about that speech. She said, you know, Bill, I wasn't there. But my classmate was there, and she said she thought that was the greatest speech that he had ever given. All right. We got to know him, et cetera. And if you look in this picture, another one of the persons that I met, Medgar Evers is in this picture. You know, Medgar Evers was at that convention, and I got to know Medgar, and I said to him, you know, Medgar, I understand that they're going to try to kill you. That you know, don't go back to Mississippi. He said, Bill, have you ever been to Mississippi? I said, no. He said, it's a beautiful state. He said, beautiful weeping willow trees. He said, it's my home state. I'm going back to make it better for my children. And they killed him. They killed him.
Hang on. Yeah, you got it, Bill.
A lot of people I knew were killed. I invited Malcolm X to the school because when I was at Rutgers, I formed the first college chapter of the NAACP. So while I was at Rutgers University, I almost got thrown out because I organized the chapter. But I invited Malcolm X to come. And he came and he spoke. And I asked him at that time, that's before he left the Nation of Islam. And I said, Malcolm, why is it that you don't vote? Why is it that your people don't vote? I said, you have so much power that you could probably change the course of history by your people voting. He said, young man, he said, you're probably a Baptist, aren't you? I said, yes, I am a Baptist. He said, remember that I'm a minister of my faith. I'm a minister of my faith. It's a religion. And that every religion has a mystique. He said, we talk about a separate state for my people. He said, when you die, where are you going? You're going to heaven, right? I said, yes. He said, well, when your preacher tells you how you're going to get from here to heaven, you're going to take an elevator, you're going to take an escalator. How are you going to get from here to heaven? He said, every religion has a mystique. When we tell the people how to get to a separate state, that's what keeps them coming. So, of course, I had a little debate with him on that, and suddenly I was surrounded by the Fruit of Islam, and they marched me out of the School of Pharmacy at Rutgers, and that's the people with me thought I had said something to Malcolm. They were going to do me in. But when they got to the car, they let me out, etc. But anyway, Malcolm was killed, okay? In my office, there's a picture of Bobby Kennedy and me and Governor Hughes. He was killed. So people that I knew personally gave their lives. And that's the reason why I say that we can give our time and our effort, and that our children must know our history. They must know who we are. They must know when we study world history that Hannibal was not victim mature. They made a movie about Hannibal, and they put a white guy, white actor on the top of an elephant, distorted history, put Victor Mature up there, letting our children not know that there's a Moor, that there's a black person like them. They need to know that. If they talk about Napoleon